wanted to get married, and I told him no. And
why didn't you want to get married?
It's because of the age difference.
How old was he?
In his 50s.
Was he financially stable?
Yeah. It's just that certain, like, I could call him right now and we could have a good conversation. Just, he wanted something else and I wanted something else, and I wish him for peace.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If on the off chance that he were to see this video, do you think that he would want you to have been homeless for the last month? Does he know that you're homeless?
No, I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to him ever since December.
And so if he saw this video, do you think that he would want to come and get you up off the street?
Probably so.
Have you ever considered maybe calling him?
No.
Why not?
It's because, you know what, I know it's hard to talk about it, but I'm going to just say it anyway. It's because that I didn't tell him that I lost my job. I didn't tell him that the little apartment that I had, I lost it. I just don't want him to see me as a failure. So it's more of a pride thing than anything. I'm just being very
straight
honest.
Up pride.
Yeah.
Was the relationship good besides?
Yes.
Okay.
He would, every Friday, I used to do something so cute. Every Friday, I would do date night, and I would surprise him when he gets off work, and I have candles everywhere, you know, a glass of wine for him and me, and then I'll make his favorite plate, which is ribs. Barbecue ribs.
I got you. So let me ask you this. I see you got like a little thing here on your eye.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get into a fight recently, or did something happen?
I want to start off by giving our praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Rock HaKodesh. Double honors to the other apostles of Great Millstone that taught me the truth. And I'm just going to go in on this one, on pride and having the ability to humble yourself. Alright? Get them start off in Proverbs. Alright. 16 and verse 18. Pride goes before destruction, and the haughty spirit before it fall. Alright? So, you know, it's telling you having too much pride, you know, you'll be brought low. Alright? And you see in the opening clip, you seen a young woman that was homeless only because she had too much pride to ask for help. Alright? Now you can go into the whole 12-minute clip. Sounds like the woman got family probably not in that city and that she could have moved with. You know, got her up off the streets or whatever. Might have been in a different city. And, you know, she has a man who wants to marry and be with her, you know, and yet she's out on the street because, you know, she wasn't ready to get married. I didn't want to get married to that particular man. Now, you know, just being a man, you know, she probably could have just called him up and he probably would have helped her get off the street without even getting back with her if that's what she desired. But she has too much pride to let anyone know that she's struggling. Alright, that's let me stay in Proverbs, I guess. Proverbs 29, 23. Alright. My bad. I want about 29. Alright. 23. A man's pride should bring him low, but honor should uphold the humble in spirit. Alright? So it's just let you know pride gonna bring you low, but you know, honor will uplift a humble spirit. All right, now I'm gonna go into the Luke. Chapter 15. Let's see where it started. Alright, I'm gonna start at verse 11. Alright, and I'm gonna go through the read story of the prodigal son. But just gonna read the part, top first part. And he said a man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that fall to me. And he divided unto them his livings. Alright. And not many days after the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, there wasted his substance with riders living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. Alright, so he ended up having to have a low job feeding swine. Alright. And he would faint have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did not eat. Alright, so pretty much he stayed alive by eating the swine food, food that the pig didn't eat. And no man gave unto him. And he came to himself and he said, How many hired servants of my father have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? So, he's saying even his father's servants had bread to spare. I would arise and go to my father and would say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. Alright, so this young man humbled himself and said he was going to go back to his father and ask to be his hired servant. Alright, and we know, this is going into Israel, and pretty much, the Israelites who knew they were Israel back in this time, and the ones who were considered the Israelite foreigners, the ones who've been living as the other nations, the Gentiles, the Hellenists, and no more worthy to be called thy son, and make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, and had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servant, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And he brought him the fattest calf, and killed it, and let us eat, and be merry. Alright, so the father was happy to receive his son. Alright. And for this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. Alright, so they was beginning to be merry. Alright. Now, because the son had enough sense to humble himself and go back to his father. Alright. Now, this woman right here in this video needed to humble herself and go back to her husband. Alright. Now, as you come into this truth, it requires us to, and I say go back to her husband. She said she ain't married, but we all know once you begin sleeping together, you pretty much married. And technically, the first man that breaks a woman's hymen is her husband, biblically. Alright? And we know every man after that commits adultery, but that is why we are known as an adulterous generation. Alright? Now, this just made me also think about, how you have to humble yourself when you come into this truth, all right, and start afresh, all right, start all over again. Me, myself, my grandfather was a pastor, two churches. My father is a pastor. You know, he don't have his church. He's up under another pastor at the church he pastored at, but is a pastor. And a large percent of my family are pastors, and stuck in plantation Christianity. But somehow the Lord woke me up to this truth. All right, so to do that, it took me having the ability to humble myself these last few years and realize I didn't know nothing. Because if you would have asked me, before the truth, I started coming, before I came to the truth, I would have claimed I knew the entire Bible. I knew everything I needed to know. You couldn't tell me nothing. And then, then to wake up and realize you don't know anything. It takes a humble spirit. And that is how we return to Yahushua. Alright, because, you have the, alright, let me get this Galatians 6:3. You got it? For if a man think to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Alright? And for a minute, I was deceived because, I thought I was much more learned in this Bible than I would. Right? So I had to deceive myself, and had to wake up to this truth. Alright? And James 4:6. Alright. But he giveth more grace wherever he said, God resists the proud, but gives grace unto the humble. So when you humble your spirit, the Lord gives grace unto the humble. It gives you the ability to begin to learn, break down, study, and understand this word the correct way. Alright, because I knew everything the incorrect way. It's a saying, whenever you go to train for anything in the military and you go to the sergeant, lieutenant, or whoever is the expert on this subject, and he goes to explain to you how to do it, the first thing they will always ask is who knows how to do such and such. And then, people, raise their hand, whatever, say they know how to do this, know how to do that. And they usually will get upset. And the reason why, they will go on to explain, now since you think you know how to do this, I got to untrain all these bad habits and teach you how to do it the right way. Because it's easier to train a blank slate than to try to train someone to stop doing things the way they doing it and to do it right. Alright? And that's going into Mark, the 2nd chapter, 21st verse. Alright. No man also sews a piece of new cloth on an old garment, else the new piece that filled it up takes away from the old, and the rent is made worse. Alright? So pretty much you put new cloth on an old garment, it looks bad, it's worse than if you would have just left it alone. Alright? 22nd verse. And no man puts new wine into old bottles, else the new wine bursts the bottles, and the wine is spilled, and the bottle will be marred. But new wine must be put into new bottles. So this means once you come into this thing, once you come into the truth, you gotta throw everything else out. Right? You gotta throw it all out, and you gotta start over again. And to do that, it takes you humbling yourself, to have a humble spirit, and to start over and to learn the correct breakdowns to these scriptures. Alright? This is Luke chapter 18, and I'm going to start at verse 9. And he spoke this parable unto a certain which trust in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Alright? 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. Alright, the Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself: Yahweh, I thank thee that I am not as the other men, undressed, adulterous, or even as this publican. I have fasted twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eye unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, Yahweh, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to the house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalts himself shall be abased, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted. So it's just letting you know that you gotta humble yourself down, and and that is what the Lord find favor with, the humble spirit. Alright, so the man that was considered the sinner was the one that the Lord was the most pleased with. Alright, because he humbled himself down and asked the Lord for mercy. And sometimes you just gotta humble yourself and get back into the right spirit. Alright. This is 1 Corinthians 11th chapter 3rd verse. But I would have you know that the head of every man is a Mashiach. So us being man, we have to humble ourselves all the way down and submit ourselves to a Mashiach, to Yahushua. Alright? And the head of every woman is the man. And that is how the woman, gets to her salvation. She got to submit herself to her man and follow her man. Alright? Because that's what the Lord requires of the woman. Alright? In the head of a Mashiach is Yahweh. And Yahweh submits himself to Yahweh. Alright, so it's a ranking structure, and this is how we each get our salvation. The man gets the salvation through Yahweh. Yahweh gets the salvation through Yahweh. Alright, in that order. So a woman gets her salvation through her man. Alright, that is why, it's one of the scriptures that I bring out a lot. 1 Corinthians 11 chapter 3rd verse, because it is key to how we end up making it through Jacob's trouble. Alright. When it takes a humble spirit. Alright. And with that, I'm gonna say Shalom.